Okay. Last class we did the Seder Meal. For anybody watching virtually, you can get a script of the Seder Meal, which is the majority of the notes from myself in room 40. But this is what it was all about. The Seder Meal, they had to eat in order and only drink at certain times. And if you didn't eat it, then you would have a... Thank you for translating. I didn't know that was consequence. You see why spelling matters? Okay, as an adult, I would have been here for a while trying to figure that out. You know, that is what it would. It's not hard. So it's just it matters. Not only that, but didn't like you're really off there too. I mean, I guess you're one letter off, but with the U in front of it, it's just sloppy. It's sloppy. You know. Leave. All right. Anyways, let's find something better. Question: how come when you do not eat the meal, you die? Like, do they kill you? You just die. You just drop down dead. Now, we don't have any record of it, the original Passover, any Jewish people dropping dead. We assume they all did it. They all went with the program. But that was the implication, that you had to eat the lamb. You had to follow the laws of God. We see that elsewhere in the Old Testament. You don't follow the law, you're capable. God is capable of causing you to die immediately.
Did he ever kill people like immediately?
Mm-hmm.
Besides the flood and stuff?
Yeah. Like there was a time when the Israelites are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, you know, through the terrain, and it gets a little bumpy, and somebody just went out to catch the Ark of the Covenant, and you're not supposed to touch it, and they shot dead. Not shot dead, but, you know, struck dead immediately. And they were just trying to secure the Ark. But God says, y'all aren't taking care of the Ark. You're not securing it well enough. And so this person was the victim, you know? So, yeah, that's recorded in the Old Testament, stuff like that. Yeah, there's other stories, but I'm not going to tell this. Too much. Jesus did not eat the whole meal. We don't have any record. I'm kind of answering the question for you right here. There's no record of a lamb being present. Jesus did not offer lamb. He did not draw attention to the Passover lamb, the Pasch. Jesus kind of puts himself out there. This is my body. This is my blood. And this is what you are to drink. Okay. And what did the unleavened bread mean? The unleavened bread symbolized that they had to make bread to eat for their journey, but it's unleavened, meaning we don't give it time to rise, to get fluffy. We don't give it time, you know, to even soften up. It's just flour, water thrown in the oven, pulled out a few minutes later, and you have your tortilla, your matzah, whatever form you like to make it, you know. So they had to eat it because God's saying, you know, nourish yourself for the journey and know that you're going somewhere. Why did they use wine? That's a big question. So they use wine because wine's a symbol of joy. You know, in the Old Testament, God gives joy to his people. He's delivering us from slavery. So we drink 4 cups of wine. Well, Jesus is going to fulfill this Passover in himself. And he's going to say, I'm the lamb. And so you have to drink my blood. What are you going to drink? You're going to drink the wine. 1, because it tastes good. 2, it gives you joy. It's seen as a gift from God, you know. So that's why wine is a part, you know, of the Seder meal. We are drinking to God. Now, when we go to Mass and we lift up that chalice to God, we are receiving Jesus, the Lamb of God, and we are praising God for what he did on the cross, okay? Who told the Jews that they had to have a specific meal? God told them, okay? You read that in your bell ringer. You should have known that. It was straight out of Exodus 12, I believe. Like, that's not a good question. Not a good question at all. Okay? What happens if someone has an allergy? For the record, allergies are new, historically speaking. Allergies are a recent development in the human body. I don't think there's a long history of allergies. There's still a lot we don't know about allergies. I know I'm a victim of allergies. I take a nasal spray regularly in the fall and the spring. So that being said, there probably were no allergies back in the day. What do you do nowadays if you're a Jew with a gluten intolerance, an allergy to gluten? You don't have the. You can probably get actually gluten-free matzah. There are people who are very strict against gluten who can order a Eucharistic host that has no gluten in it. It's made with gluten-free flour and mixed with water, and you can buy gluten-free host. You give it to the priest, and the priest gives it back to you as Jesus. So there's ways around that. Did the Jews have to eat all of their food? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they took too much. I don't know if they had to finish, but they had to eat all the elements that God told them to eat, which was what were the original elements? There was three original ones. Everything else was added. Bread, lamb, bitter herbs, which was horseradish.
Did they know exactly what kind of herbs?
To use?
Yeah, like what
I don't know.
they use with this one?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know what they might have used originally. It could have been different. I'm sure there's a lot of bitter herbs out there, but you could research that and get bonus points if you want to dig deep into what was the original bitter herb. Was it horseradish? Yeah, report cards next week. All right. Let's move on. This is the important question. What did Jesus do differently? He did say that this is my body, this is my blood. That's one good thing. He did not drink the last cup. He did not drink the fourth cup, nor did the apostles, really, I don't think, because Jesus just cut out from the Last Supper. Yeah, he says that I will not drink again until I'm in the kingdom of my Father. Good job. That too, probably. But we don't have, yeah. It is. Yeah. So he didn't finish the meal, we can say that. But did he finish the food on his plate? I don't know. We don't know about that. You got to know that Jesus takes the place of the lamb. There's no mention of lamb. Okay, so that's one thing that y'all are missing as a class of. Oh, there it. Okay. A couple of people got it. No fourth cup. Those are the main ones. Okay. All right. Now we're going to move on from the upper room, the Last Supper, and we're going to go singing as Jesus did to the Mount of Olives, and we're going to read about the agony of the garden there today. Who does Jesus take? He takes all the apostles to the Garden of Gethsemane. I'll show you kind of where that is. I've got a half decent map that I'll pull up here. We don't know, it's not on this map exactly where Jesus celebrated the Last Supper, but it's probably somewhere on the outskirts of Jerusalem. But then this is Gethsemane, so it could have been a good hike for Jesus to get to the Mount of Olives, which is the northeast quadrant of Jerusalem, and then here at the bottom of the mountain is the Garden of Gethsemane. That's where Jesus regularly took his apostles to go sing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my pastor, Father McIntyre, is going there next week. Saturday. Okay. Yeah, I don't know exactly. Yeah, me too. It's on my bucket list, and I got a short bucket list. But going to the Holy Land is one thing that I want to do. I just have, you know, 2 kids at home, so it's hard. What's up? Yeah, they've been persecuted. They've been kicked out. They've been martyred. Mm-hmm.
It was 25%, you said last year.
Yeah.
And like that with COVID. Or 25% like that with COVID.
Yeah, with less tourism, there's less outside support for the Christians that are left. So yeah, it's hard times being a Christian in that region. The Muslims there are making it pretty difficult, / impossible. Yeah, it's not a peaceful area, and it's been that way for a long time. Yeah, yeah, very true. So we're going out to the Garden of Gethsemane, the agony in the garden. And we're going out, as you saw last class. This was the slide. After singing him, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And I believe in Mark and or Luke, it says Jesus went out. And as they're walking, they're singing the hymn. What hymn? Psalms 115, 116, 117, 118. These are the Passover hymns. They are yet to drink the fourth cup. But here we go. Okay. Let's open our Bibles to the Gospel of Matthew as we break down this very intense story. I believe Matthew 26.
How do you find it with the dots?
Well, it's hard to do with the Gospels. I really. We are looking at page 63 in the New Testament, Matthew chapter 26.
I haven't been to the Holy Land, but I saw in my school, in my old school first, they had the heart of St. John Merchants and they brought it from Belgium.
Wow.
And they let us go up to it. I don't remember if I touched it or not. I walked up to it. And they had it like that little gold thing.
Yeah. You got to touch the gold
thing. There was
thing.
like thousands of people who came from that.
Wow. And that was in Grand Coteau? Yeah.
We were all dressed up in those seats.
Oh, shack. Sweet. Okay, agony in the garden, verse 36. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to the disciples, sit here while I go over there to pray. And he took along Peter and two sons of Zebedee, that's James and John, and began to feel sorrow and distress. So he brings all of his apostles out, but then he says, you three come follow me deeper. He's done this before. He did it at the Transfiguration and other times. Peter, James, and John are like the inner circle closer to Jesus. Peter obviously is being formed to be the first pope, and James and John were just said to be just two really good guys. So they were on Jesus' good side a lot. And he began to feel sorrow and distress. Verse 38. Then he said to them, his apostles, my soul is sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and keep watch with me. He advanced a little and fell prostrate in prayer, which is not a typical prayer for Jewish people to pray. He prayed standing most of the time as a Jewish person. But Jesus is so struck with sorrow. There's something that is so overwhelming his soul. And that is the main question of this class, period. We're going to ask ourselves, what exactly is it? I mean, exactly. Can we pinpoint why he's in such distress? He's known for years he was going to die on the cross. He told his apostles 1,000 times, I'm going to go die on the cross. You know, and yet here he is, and he's visibly shaken, and he's lying prostrate. He's just lying flat on the ground before God. Most of the pictures you see of the agony in the garden, including the one here, he's kneeling, and I'm sure he probably made his way to a prostrate, but you know, he's exhausted, he's out, he's wiped. You know, this is Jesus in the garden, and then he prays this prayer: Father, if it be possible, let this chalice pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. What chalice? What did you say, Anna? Yeah, the chalice. The chalice referencing his blood that he would shed. But remember, we're building off of the Last Supper, and so we're looking for the fourth cup of the Passover. Jesus leaves the Passover early. He goes to the garden and he says, Father, let this cup pass from me. Let this chalice pass from me. Not as I will, but as you will. You know, surrendering his human will to his Father's divine will. When he returned to his disciples, he found them asleep. So you see his sleeping apostles off here, bottom left corner of the screen. They're sleeping. You know, they just had 3 glasses of wine. They had a good meal. It's late, busy time of year, and they pass out in the garden. Jesus is like, come on, like wake up. This is kind of a big deal right now. So you could not keep watch with me for 1 hour. Watch and pray that you may not undergo the test. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. All right. So Jesus kind of kicks him like I do to my sleeping students. And he makes his way back into prayer a second time. Withdrawing a second time, he prayed again, my Father, if it is not possible that this cup pass without my drinking it, your will be done. So he says the same prayer, different words. He's fixated on this cup, on this chalice. And we know, you know how the story ends. You know he's going to die. But what exactly is it about this cup?
I always thought that this was about Jesus, and like since he's fully human, he doesn't want to die. He said like if there's another way like around it.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I agree entirely. Jesus didn't want to be tortured. Jesus had a human body, as much of a human body as you and I do. He didn't want to be tortured to death. Nobody does. That being said, though, Ava, a lot of people got crucified at his time. People are crucified today. People are tortured today. And people don't get to this level of anxiety that Jesus did. What I'm suggesting to you in this class / teaching you is there's more going on to this picture than just I don't want to go get crucified, which is clearly something to be fearful of. But when Jesus had this level of preparation, he knows he's going to rise from the dead. I think logically you have to say there's something bigger going on here. And I want to draw your attention to that. He's fixated on this chalice. Okay. Then he returned once more and found them asleep, for they could not keep their eyes open. And this is where I relate to Jesus too. In the next line, he left them and withdrew a grin. So he goes back to Peter, James, and John to fill them in maybe or talk to them. They fell asleep again. And he doesn't even wake them up that time. He just walks on back for a third time in prayer. And what does the Bible say that he prayed? He returned to his, he prayed a third time, saying the same thing again. So Matthew's not even going to quote him for a third time. He just keeps praying about this chalice. Then he returned to his disciples and said to them, are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Behold, the hour is at hand when the Son of Man is to be handed over to sinners. Get up. Let's go. Look, my betrayer is at hand. Okay, so then you see in this picture on the board the soldiers, and Judas is probably the one lurking, right there, kind of next to, I guess, the door that's open. But Jesus knows they're coming. He knows this is his hour, and he is in great anguish.
Did all the apostles fall asleep or just Peter, James, and John?
Yeah, we don't know what's going on with the other 9. Well, the other 8, because Judas, of course, left. So we don't know. They're probably sleeping on the further outskirts, if we had a guess. Yeah, well, hey, you're on the right track. But you don't get that in Matthew. You got to turn your Bibles now to Luke. Luke chapter 22. I think Luke is the only gospel that records the blood coming out of his pores. Page 137.
Did that happen to us?
Yes, it's called hematidrosis. It is a condition whereby a person is under so much anxiety that the blood seeps through the pores of their sweat. It happened to a woman in Italy a couple years ago. It's very, very, very rare, but scientists recognize it as the kind of like the peak of anxiety. Yeah, it's it's a real medical condition, but not a common one. Immense. We can't begin to fathom what's going on here. And like I've already said, I think you got to say there's something more than just a looming death that Jesus has known. He was born to die. Not to make his death seem easy, but what's going on here? Okay, we're looking at verse 42. Hear the words again. Father, if you're willing, take this cup away from me. Still not my will, but yours be done. And to strengthen him, an angel from heaven appeared to him. That's the angel in the picture here. I think Luke's the only gospel that mentions that God sent an angel to console Jesus. Like, for whatever Jesus needs to be consoled about, the angel assured him. Okay? He was in such agony that he prayed so fervently that his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. So there's the passage. Jesus was sweating blood. You don't get that really from this picture. I really like this picture because it shows the sleeping apostles. You see the soldiers coming. You see the angel. You see the chalice. It's got everything except Jesus prostrate in the blood. But I'll take it because it's hard to get Jesus on the ground, frankly. Anyways, the point is Jesus is sweating blood, high anxiety. Okay. Turn to the Gospel of John, chapter 18. Peter, could you not stay awake for 1 hour? All right. Chapter 18, verse 11. Well, you know what? As I taught you chapter 1, John writes on a whole different level. So we're going to start from the top. Chapter 18, verse 1. When he said this, Jesus went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to where there was a garden into which he and his disciples entered. Judas, his betrayer, also knew the place because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. Jesus would meet there. He'd probably pray there. And Judas knew that. So he says, hey, once they're done this Passover meal, they're going to go to the garden. And so Judas knows where to bring the Jewish posse that's going to arrest him. So Judas got a band of soldiers and guards from the chief priests and the Pharisees and went there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. Jesus, knowing everything that was going to happen, went out and said to them, so Jesus engages them. He ain't running at all. He says, who are you looking for? They answered him, Jesus the Nazarene. He said to them, I am. And you see that if you're reading along with me in the Bible like you should be, you see I am in all caps. Judas was his betrayer, was also with them. When he said to them, I am, they turned away and fell to the ground. There's like this roar of Jesus, I am, which in the Gospel of John is a big deal, as you see on this poster, which I normally have hanging behind my desk. The Gospel of John, when Jesus says I am, he is saying that I am he who is. I am who am, which is what God told Moses in the burning bush. And he's got these 7 big statements of I am in the Gospel of John. You notice the Bible passages for all of them. I tell you the truth, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. Like he's claiming his divinity. He's claiming his status as one with God in the statement. So when they come to take him away, what's he going to say? I am. And there's that little like, oh yeah, you're Jesus of Nazareth, but you are who is. That's a big statement. Verse 7, so again they asked him, who are you looking for? They said, Jesus the Nazarene. Jesus answered, I told you that I am. So if you're looking for me, let these men go. This was to fulfill what he said, I have not lost any of those you gave me. All right, so at this point, Simon's awake. Peter's awake, and he's like, oh, we got soldiers. They're going to take Jesus. I'm ready to die for Jesus, and I said I would. So he pulls out his sword. Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it, struck the high priest's slave, and cut off his right ear. The slave's name was Malchus. Jesus said to Peter, put your sword in its scabbard. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father gave me? There you go. Again, Gospel of John. You don't get the prayer of Jesus in the Gospel of John. What you get is, Peter, I got to go drink another cup. These men are maybe not on our side, but God's going to use them to achieve the purpose. I've got to go drink my cup. Peter, I'm not here to fight. So put your sword away. Silly Peter couldn't stay awake. And now he's like, wants to start a war, over arresting Jesus. So the band of soldiers, tribune, and Jewish guards see Jesus, bound him, and brought him to Annas. And we're going to pick up with the trials of Jesus on the timeline, but I'm calling a timeout right now. And I have this question for you, okay? How can you understand Jesus' agony? I'm going to suggest to you that it's more than physical pain that Jesus is hesitating from, okay? It's more than just cross and torture and the probably 12 hours of excruciating pain that he might have gone through. Maybe less than 12 hours, dying at 3 p.m. his scourging might have began, I don't know, 7 or 8 if I had to guess. Anyways, I think it's more than that. That's only the surface level. I'm going to give you 3 levels of human suffering on the board. Number 1 is physical. That is the lowest form of pain, you know? You break a leg, you pop a zit, you know? You have a virus, you got the flu, you got the COVID, you know? All these things are just, it's pain, but it's not that deep. It's almost on your outside. It's in your body, you know? And I'm not denying that that hurts, but the truth is most of you are aware that there's worse things to happen. Level 2. Any guesses? Yeah, mental suffering, mental illness, depression, anxiety, bipolar, you name it, mental suffering. The suffering in your brain is so much more uncontrollable. It's so much deeper into your person and your ability to control your own body and your actions. Immense suffering that some of you know about, you know? And I'm sure Jesus, obviously, he had physical suffering in his passion. We've seen his high anxiety in the garden. There's his mental suffering. But what would cause him to sweat blood? What would cause him to lie prostrate and plead with his father for another way out? What? Spiritual? Yeah. But spiritual is kind of a vague word. I'm going to put spiritual / soul. Like a person's soul is suffering. Not just their mind, not just their body, but their soul. And you might know what this looks like, okay? When you got dumped, you know, maybe for the first time, or when your best friend stabs you in the back, that hurts your soul. You're not sick in your mind, you're not hurting your body, but you loved somebody and they took advantage of that. And that's some of the worst suffering out there to experience. And that's why heartbreaks are worse than getting the flu. That's why, you know, it's why people commit suicide, because their soul is suffering so much that they experience it as better as to not even live. This is the deepest level of suffering, to suffer in one's soul. Okay, so I find this very important because it looks like Jesus is turning the page. Your bell ringer last class, you read his first words. He said, "I've eagerly desired to share this Passover meal with you." He's so ready to enter into the Passover, but we go into the garden and he's got a whole different tone. He's like, "Oh no, I can't do this anymore. Is there another way out, Father?" It's like, what's going on? What is Jesus seeing in his soul? And this is where we get some help from Faustina, whose feast day is today, by the way. St. Faustina, who Jesus appeared to, her feast day is today. So is that a coincidence? I don't know. But it works out nicely for today's lesson. St. Faustina had this intimate relation with Jesus, and Jesus revealed to her, you know, for the sake of his sorrowful passion and mercy on us and on the whole world, Jesus revealed to her some secrets and powers of his passion and what he was going through. And this is one of many paragraphs I could give you, but this is the suffering of Jesus, I would venture, in the garden. Jesus said the following quote to St. Faustina: "My soul," not his body, not even his mind so much, "but my soul suffered the most dreadful loathing in the Garden of Olives." Garden of Gethsemane, same place. "Because of lukewarm souls." What's a lukewarm soul? What's lukewarm? It's not hot, it's not cold. It's got no temperature. It's not good for a whole lot. Yeah, it might hydrate you, but it doesn't refresh you. It's just blah. It's just, I don't care about life. I don't care about church. I don't care about God. I don't care that Jesus died for me. I've got my own life to live, Catholic Church. Jesus says, and the Father is saying, I need you to die for these people who you're going to pour yourself out. You're going to suffer. You're going to give them your heart, and they're going to spit on it. And they're not even going to care. And Jesus says, it's not that Jesus doesn't love these lukewarm souls. He loves them so much. That's what hurts. He loves them so much, and they don't even care. They could care less about their relationship with God. They can care less about receiving his mercy in the sacraments. Jesus says, but to love in this level and be rejected, that's the worst pain. And some of you have experienced it on your own high school level, but the older you get, the more you're going to fall in love. You're going to fall in love, in deeper ways. You might have an engagement that breaks up, all the drama of life. You're going to have kids that won't listen to you, and that is the worst suffering. And that's what Jesus is saying. I suffered because of lukewarm souls. They were the reason I cried out, Father, take this cup away from me if it be your will. So Jesus told Faustina why he was suffering. And if you believe in Faustina's revelations, then you see that Jesus shows us that to love so deeply, but to be rejected is the greatest suffering. And so when you pick up the chaplet and you maybe pray a chaplet before next class, when you have a quiz on the chaplet, when you pick that up, what you're doing is you're consoling the heart of Jesus. And what you're saying is, Jesus, I will take your mercy. And then you bring some relief to that, and Jesus loves you all the more. And that's what he means when he says, I have enough mercy for everybody. I died for everybody. To wipe away every sin in the world is nothing, but nobody wants my mercy, and that's the worst. That is the worst. And so that's the deeper insight I want you to have when it comes to the agony of the garden. I want you to know the different levels of suffering and exactly why Jesus would go from 1 minute wanting to die for us, but then perhaps the Father lets him know, like, hey, son, you're going to die, but most of the world's not going to care. Most of the world's not going to receive it. You can imagine the anguish. And he did it anyways, and he did it for you. He did it for anybody that would say yes. So I wanted to share that with you. That is the next stage as we head towards the passion of Jesus. Okay? And I'm going to stop recording here.